Welcome back to another episode of Day One Radio right here on Live Hip Hop Daily. I'm Maurice Garland in here with my man Brandon Peters. What's going on, man?
What's good, bro? Everything good with you?
Everything is
cold
good
enough
and cold. Yeah. I mean, this is what everybody been asking for since September. Folks was like, when is it going to cool off?
I've never asked. No, people said cool off, not get cold. There's a huge gray area between 30-something and 90. Huge gray area, for
cold
sure.
and the 8 don't work. Right?
Yeah. I'm cool on that. But yeah, man, everything been good. Appreciate y'all listening on through our partners at CLNS Media. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review the show. Make sure you follow us on Hip Hop Trivia ATL, Day One Radio, and make sure you follow Live Hip Hop Daily as well. We appreciate the support all the time. And normally, you know, y'all get us in your inbox, get your alerts on Thursday mornings when we drop new shows. But we had to hold off a little bit this week. Drop a day late because we got a very important guest in town, man. We all about music, as you know, not just hip hop, but all genres. And we have a brother in here that is a major part of creating something we have never had in this country before. And do we call you by your first name? We call you the super professional name.
Nah.
All right. Nah. All right, we got.
We can let it go.
Okay, we can let it know. Well, if you looking him up online, you're gonna find Beecher Hicks III, which makes him sound like an extremely wealthy white man. But this is a brother in the building, man. It's now the president and CEO of the National Museum of African American Music, which will be launching in Nashville, Tennessee in 2019. Music City.
Music City.
A lot of people sleep on Nashville. We have, friends that record, on a high level, and they always tell us that Nashville has the best studios in the world.
It does, man. Yeah, a lot of people sleep on Nashville, man. But it's Music City for a reason, man. All the studios, the performance rights organizations, man, and even the Fisk Jubilee Singers, which is really where the city got its name.
I was gonna ask you about that because people think Nashville, they think country music, and they just assume that the title Music City came from something to do with country music, and that's not the case.
That is not the case. The Fisk Jubilee Singers, of course, affiliated with Fisk University.
Right.
Early days of the college, the money was a little funny, so they sent the Jubilee Singers out around the world touring to raise money for the college. And the rumor goes that they went over to England, did a performance for the Queen, and the Queen said, "You all must be from a musical city. You perform so well." And so came back and the nickname stuck, and therefore you got Nashville as Music City.
Why do you think Nashville makes sense to launch a project like this? Because, music gets made in a lot of places, and a lot of people would assume that you would open something like this in Atlanta off GP, you know what I'm saying? But it's like a lot of folks don't know that Nashville, music is actually in the city's industry and budget there, as opposed to in Atlanta, it still gets treated like a pretty looking stepchild to a degree.
Right, it's a pretty stepchild. But so in Nashville, it really is. It permeates the culture everywhere. Execs leave their jobs at 4:30 to go play in a band. Wow. It's just everywhere you go. You go through the airport, there's live music everywhere. I've never been in a city. I went to the mayor, did the State of the City address, and opened up with CeCe Winans and closed with CeCe Winans. So it's just, the music is just a part of everything that's going on in the city. The music industry is deep there. People don't know there are more musicians per capita making their living in Nashville than any other city in the country. Wow. And so it's just a big part of the culture. And so, we are excited. People come to Nashville because of music. It's a big hang because of music. The arena there, Bridgestone Arena, is the 5th most visited arena in the United States. And it's in Nashville because people go to hang out and to do music. And so it's a great place for the National Museum of African American Music.
So a lot of attention obviously has been paid to museums in our community because of the Smithsonian opening. I guess that was last year. Did that make it easier for you to kind of get this project done and get the press around it and get people excited about it?
Yeah, I'd say a little bit. So this project has been 20 years in the making.
Wow.
So, it is no overnight success, and it's still a battle. We got some money yet to raise. Construction is underway, but we still got some work to do. But it did. I think that the Smithsonian really helped people get optimistic about the celebration of Black culture. Okay. And so I think that the way that it was received around the country, the lines down the block, the difficulty getting tickets, I think made folks, sort of donors and patrons, music industry folks kind of say, you know what, something like this would work, something like this would be cool. And so, yeah, I mean, we saw a lift in enthusiasm once the Smithsonian opened.
In your fundraising efforts, because like I've never raised funds to build a museum, you know what I'm saying? But
Really?
right, you know. But,
Me neither.
So that being said, like, where are you getting the money from? Like, are the dollars attached to a face at this point, or is it just digits hitting a certain account? Like, are you seeing the faces that are attached to the dollars, and is there anything surprising about where some of this funding is coming from?
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, sort of all charity it begins at home, right? So the biggest chunks of money have really come from the city of Nashville, the state of Tennessee. We've got some philanthropic donors in Tennessee that have really stepped up, across, races, ethnicity, age, sort of folks from all walks of life who understand the importance of this culture and celebrating this culture. And we are starting to see last year's fiscal year-end campaign we did, and I think we got gifts from around the country, 35 states or something like that. Wow. $5 or $5,000. We've gotten a couple of six-figure checks over the transom, folks that had heard about our work and sent some money to us to help kind of move the project along. So it has been, I'll tell you, I mean, one of the things that is so energizing about what we're doing is the gift that people give us, and whether it is a $5 check that shows up in the mail that we had no idea was coming, or you guys invite me on the show tonight, right? I mean, that is the kind of thing that makes us say, you know what, go to sleep, rest, get up, and hit it hard again tomorrow, because people believe. And so that has been a little surprising. Maybe it shouldn't be, but a little bit of surprising, and also very inspirational.
Now, if you to be bluntly direct, like how much money does something like this cost? You know what I'm saying? 'Cause like when you start asking for money, folks want to know. I mean, how much are you asking me for?
Yeah.
How much is going to get spent on this? How much do you need? Damn, bro, you already got $500,000. Why do you need more? You know what I'm saying? So.
Well, this is roughly a $50 million project. It is right in the heart of downtown Nashville, right across from that Bridgestone Arena that I mentioned, right across from the Ryman Auditorium, which many people know is the mother church of country music. It is right in the heart of the city. I mean, you just could not ask for a better location in the state. So it's a 56,000 square feet. So that's a lot of concrete. That's a lot of glass. The exhibits that we're going to build are very technology rich. So we're doing a lot of custom films, custom software, custom interactive exhibits that we're going to do. So it's expensive. It's expensive. And so, it really is taking a real commitment, again, to the culture, to, museums are really educational institutions. Yeah. So doing something like this will allow us to take this education into classrooms to work with kids, not just in Nashville, but around the country. And so it's expensive to do that, but it'll pay off. It'll be worth it. I'm sure that the public will support it. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm building in the music industry amongst the artist community, as well as the business people behind the artists. So we're excited about it, and we got a little bit left to go. We're about 70% of the way there. Okay. So we got a little bit left to go, but every time we see a little bit more concrete poured, we get a little bit more enthusiasm.
How can somebody who is hearing this or watching us on YouTube or Live Hip Hop Daily, how can they donate if they're like, oh, I'm sold already?
I'm glad you asked. So we could. The best way is you can hit our website at thenmaam or nmaam.com or .org is our website, and all of our social handles are the NMAAM, so the acronym for the museum. Okay. And you can hit us on social, hit us on the website. There's some donate buttons there. Cool. Sort of send us your address. We'll put you on a mailing list, and we'll send you stuff, and we'll ask you for money all the time.
Gotcha. Y'all got to get them tax deductions for the end of the year.
Absolutely.
So go right ahead.
Absolutely. We need
that. Go
right
ahead. Also, for you, you said 35 people from 35 states had donated. Do you envision this being something that is like a destination, like people plan their vacations around Nashville, like we need to see this museum, we need to experience it.
Yeah, absolutely. That is certainly my hope, and what I anticipate will be the case. One of the cool things you asked about why Nashville earlier is that Nashville is really located within about easy driving distance of about 50 or 60% of the U.S. population.
Wow.
So, whether times are good, people go to Nashville again to hang out and do music. And I think with this museum coming online, it's just one more reason to come to town, spend a couple of days, hang out with us at the museum, do all the other great things there are to do in Nashville. So I really do think it's a place where, in fact, we're meeting with, fraternities and sororities and with civil rights organizations and convention groups and that sort of thing, because they're looking at coming to Nashville in part because this museum is coming online. So I definitely think it will make Nashville even more of a destination. So pretty soon folks won't be sleeping on Nashville as much as they are now.
All right.
So tell us a little bit about your background in music, because anytime somebody comes along and puts a flag in the ground like, I'm starting a museum because I know everything and I know everybody, and folks are like, first of all, who are you, bro? And why are you asking me for money, and why are you being trusted with this information? You know what I'm saying? It's like, give us a little background, on like your history in music or even museum building.
Sure. Well, what's interesting about this is that it really has become a passion over a period of time. My background in music really has to do with my roots in the church. I'm the son of a Baptist minister, and so a lot of singing around me. I've been in many a choir, and then I actually got a scholarship to go to Morehouse to sing in the Glee Club. I didn't sing in there very long because I needed to focus on biology and math instead of singing. But it was always something that I loved to do, and really, I'm trained as an investment banker, private equity guy, so business guy, and I invested in a business in Nashville in 2009 that was in the tourism space. Went up to Nashville, started getting involved in the community, and some folks said, hey, you ought to get involved in the museum. And so I did. I joined the board, and over a period of time, I became just more and more passionate about it because, once again, I saw this was a great need for our culture, a great need for the music industry, a great need for kids in school today who don't see as many heroes as they should. And so the more that I saw how impactful this would be, I'd go around, I would talk to my friends in the music industry, and they would, unfailingly say, man, this is great. It doesn't exist. And so, as I began to hear that, and as kids began to be interested in it, I said, we have to do it. We have to do it. So I really took my business background more than anything else, and then dove in and said, I got to learn about the music industry, and I have to learn about museums, and even have to learn about nonprofit fundraising. And so over the last 5 years that I've been CEO, I've been learning as we go. And I think that's served me well, because I haven't shown up, to the artists and said, or to the music industry and said, I know what I'm doing, give me a bunch of money. What I've said is, what do you want? What's going to be good for you? We're going to do this museum. We think it'll be really cool, but what's going to make it work? Mm-hmm. And so when doing that, you start a conversation, you build a relationship, and then over time you build trust.
Has doing this project inspired you to get back out there and start singing again? We're going to catch you in some bars around Nashville.
I don't know, every now and then, but it did inspire me to pick up DJing and start learning how to DJ a little bit. So I have started playing around with that.
Okay, that's what's up. Hey man, everybody else doing this, you might as well.
Right, hey, that's right.
I think the educational benefit of the museum is pretty obvious. My question would be, since Nashville is such a hotbed of musicians, how will the museum benefit the artist community locally and beyond locally?
Yeah, well, so as you were pointing out, so many museums are very label specific or genre specific, or maybe even artist label genre specific, right? So this really encompasses all of it. It really is American history and American music sort of building up at the same time. So what we really hope to be able to do is to highlight, artists that may not have won a Grammy. Okay. And so, some of the favorite, musicians that you or I might have, may not be the ones that will make it into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that their music isn't powerful. That doesn't mean that it hasn't been inspirational or meaningful in our lives. And so this museum will be that for them. In addition to that, it will help to tell their story. So one of the things that I remember I was having a conversation with India Ari a few years ago, You all might remember there was some Grammy controversy where I think it was Ron Isley got a Lifetime Achievement Award, but he got it off camera.
Right.
And so India wrote an op-ed kind of talking about how ridiculous that was.
Right.
And so we started having a conversation with her around that notion of, okay, how do you get your message, the thing that you are passionate about, how do you get that out to the public in a broader form? That's one thing for you, India, to do what you do and use your social channels and that kind of thing to kind of get that message out. But what about the 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 brothers and sisters who are also artists who have a similar concern? Where do you go to bring that together so that you can bundle up that thing and make it really powerful and bring it forward? That's what I think this museum can help the artist community do. We can be their home, and we can be the place where we become a place where they can rally, and from us can come out, the messages that they want to get out. That's what we really want to try to do.
To piggyback off of what you just brought up, I mean, rightfully so. I mean, artists can be very sensitive when things like that happen. Black people, period, can be sensitive when things like that happen. So, in building this museum and seeing out this vision, like how inclusive do you see it being? Because I compare it to like that dust up that we saw on social media. We're like, oh, what? A white woman is curating the hip hop in the black, in the African American Museum in the Smithsonian. It's like some people were like, if she knows what she's talking about, it's cool.
Yeah.
Other folks were like, y'all couldn't find no black people to do that. You know what I'm saying? So like with your museum, like how inclusive do you want to see it, and do you think there's space for people that may not have, that are not black to contribute to something like this?
Well, I mean, I think we will be inclusive. It's really important to us. As a matter of fact, our tagline for the museum is "One Nation Under a Groove," and so we want to.
It don't get no blacker than that.
It don't get no blacker than that. So but the idea behind that song is people from all walks of life, all races, really coming together, kind of under a groove. In this time of divisiveness politically in our country, I mean, we can't survive. We can't afford too much of that. Having said that, we've got to tell it from an unapologetically black perspective.
No doubt.
That doesn't mean that all of our staff will always be black. And we certainly don't expect all our visitors to be black. That doesn't mean that all the pictures on the wall are going to be black, but we're going to tell these stories from a black perspective. Rock and roll was a black genre of music.
100%.
And we need to tell that story. Right. We need to help people who are fans of rock and roll appreciate where rock and roll came from.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there weren't some white folks who were greats in rock and roll, and we can be cool with that. But let's understand where it all came from. Mm-hmm. So let's help not only black folks understand where that came from, but let's help white folks understand where that came from too. Yeah. And then be good with that and be able to celebrate that. And that is what can bring us together, is just saying, listen, let's just tell the truth about where this stuff came from. And so that's what this museum has an opportunity to do, is to just tell the truth.
Can you speak a little bit to the artists and non-artists that are helping you guys curate the museum and curate the exhibits?
Yeah. So, we've been very, very fortunate. We've got a stellar team of folks who are working on that. Starting with Dr. John Fleming is our museum director in residence. Dr. Fleming ran the Cincinnati Museum Center in Ohio, the Underground Railroad Freedom Center. He started the National Afro-American Museum in Ohio. And so we're very fortunate to have him leading that effort. And then right behind him is a woman by the name of Dr. Portia Maltsby. Dr. Maltsby retired from the University of Indiana and is known as one of the leading ethnomusicologists in the world, which means she studies kind of the culture behind the music. And then, along with the two of them, we assembled a scholarly advisory panel of PhDs in various forms of music from around the country, universities large and small, East Coast, West Coast, South, Midwest, and had them write for us essays around the biggest and most important periods, contributions, and artists in music. And then we got together with one of the curators at the Smithsonian in DC and had Dr. Faith Ruffins take all of those essays and distill them down to what we call the storyline narrative of the museum. And then from there, we've hired scriptwriter, image researchers, and one of the leading exhibit design firms in the country. Once we got them going, we then hired our own ethnomusicologists in-house. So we're very proud that we have a team of PhDs that are doing that work for us in-house. Dr. Dina Bennett is a scholar in the blues, who is our curatorial director. Dr. Stephen Lewis is our curator, who is a PhD in jazz. And then Dr. Marquita Reed is a new PhD with a PhD in public history, and she's our collections manager. So we've got a lot of smart folks working with us from around the country to make sure we get the story right.
Yeah, because I have been to museums recently where it's like you walk in there and it's like it's written on the wall, can't be erased, and you're like, that is wrong as hell. How did that get all the way through the line of command to get put on the wall that you can't erase that from now? You know what I'm saying? So
well, we're trying very hard to minimize that. I'm not going to say we're going to be perfect, but we're going to try to minimize that, get it just as right as we can. And then, one of the things that being wrong gives you the opportunity to do, if that should happen, is to have a conversation and engage with the public and have these conversations, learn a little bit more, and then correct it. But we try very hard to be very thorough on the front end so we can make sure we get it right.
Definitely. How'd you guys put together the board that you have? I know you mentioned NDIRE. I know CC1 is involved, a few other notable musicians. So how'd you guys pull that together?
Kev Mo, Darius Rucker. So we wanted to find a group of folks who were well respected around the country and around the world for their various contributions to music, different genres. We wanted to touch folks, for the most part, that had some tie to Nashville, so they understood what was going on in Nashville, even though they may live or work or be known prominently in other parts of the country. And so that was kind of where we started with those folks. And then we've got some folks on the board who are from the music industry as well. So we've got some label execs, some execs with the PROs, and then we've got some community leaders and philanthropists and that kind of thing, both from Nashville and from one or two other cities around the country as well. And so we're still building the board, though. Over these next couple of years, the board will become increasingly, I think, national and increasingly music industry in terms of its shape.
Got you. Now we've gotten to the point, obviously, jazz. We need to know about that. We know the history of that, and like you mentioned, rock and roll earlier. But we've gotten to the point where hip hop is old enough where there are teenagers and young adults who don't know the history of that genre.
That's right.
So who are the people that you have involved to tell that story, and how do you envision hip hop living in this museum?
Well, so first of all, it will be front and center in the museum. So
nice.
One of the largest galleries in the museum is entitled The Message, and will really deal with the period of American music from about 1970 up to about 2012 or 13 or so. And it will be predominantly hip-hop focused. Some of those scholars that I mentioned on that scholarly advisory council are, in fact, scholars in American hip-hop music. And in fact, one of the things that we're going to be doing here very soon is pulling together a scholarly group in Nashville who are specifically younger scholars with an emphasis on hip-hop music to get together with them, review the storyline with them, and make sure that they are fully in agreement with the direction that we've gone. So we want to make sure we get that story right as well.
So in building this storyline, I'm curious to know, you named a lot of scholars, a lot of folks with degrees.
Yeah.
Are there people without degrees that are involved? Because the thing about museums like this, when you get so many PhDs and MDs involved, you walk in there, you're like, damn, I want me to walk into a history book. You know what I'm saying? I was trying to, learn something, but damn, this is very dense. I feel like I'm in class. You know what I'm saying? So, are there measures being taken, for the people that are going there for that, and for the people that are like, I bought my first rap CD last year. I know nothing about it. This is too much for me.
Right. Yeah, no, so a couple of ways that we'll deal with that. First of all, it is a big story. So the 56,000 square feet that we have is nowhere near enough. And so the process of kind of whittling it down, unfortunately, is going to leave, to the casual visitor, is going to leave a lot out. But we're using technology to allow the visitor to kind of dig deep as much as they want to in terms of that history, and they can go in directions that they want to go, and in some ways curate their own experience. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I'm not that scholar. So part of my role in the curatorial process is to push back on the curators a bit and say, hey, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't feel right. That sounds, a little too scholarly for the audience that we're going to have. And so that's a part of the role that I play. But we also from time to time sort of take parts of the storyline and introduce it to our board, introduce it to music industry folks, kind of share pictures and stories and artifacts and that kind of thing with them so that we can hear their feedback and get their story. So, those are ways that we try to do that.
I would definitely say, and I think that sounds great. I think where the Smithsonian did good with it because they picked, Daddy-O, Chuck D, Knife, cats like that.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of people miss out on, when they're curating the culture, talking to people who have actually been documenting the culture for the last 10, 15, 20 years, the Day1RADIOs, the Elliots, myself, Maurice, or whatnot. And I think that should be a major part of it because when you work in the music industry, your job is to sell records.
Yep.
When you are an educator, your job is to educate. When you are documenting the culture, that is your job. And essentially that's what the history is a documentation of what happened. So it's stories that people who have no allegiance to whatever artist or whatever label are gonna know and gonna be aware of and already have it written down and have the proof of it to put out there. I think one of the best books I've ever read on the music, and two of the best books I've ever read on the music industry were Death of Rhythm and Blues by Nelson George, which a lot of what I know about rock and roll came from that, including the Beatles, their first deal in the United States being to a black-owned record label.
Yep.
And Dan Charnas is a big payback.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Which is pretty much the entire financial history of hip hop. So just something to put on your mind. I think that's very important, and I think that's a lot of places miss out on that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. In fact, earlier today we were over at the Trap Music Museum, and kind of having that exact conversation and saying, listen, we need to make sure we get the story from the people that are living the story,
100%.
The people that have been writing about it and thinking about it in real time. So, I'd love nothing better than to work with you guys to kind of get connected with some more of those sort of more casual historians, more contemporary historians, and make sure that we get those stories as a part of what we're doing.
And it's funny because there's it might even be the same thing. I don't know if are you guys working with Michael Malden at all?
A little bit. I would say so. Michael works with Charlie Wilson, and we just honored Charlie at our most recent Celebration of Legends event, and so we've been having some dialogue with Michael specifically about Charlie over the last. Because
Michael Malden and Mr. Guidry, who worked for labels for years, had approached me about because we do a hip hop trivia event.
Okay,
been doing it for like the last 3 years and won best trivia night in the city for a long time, and it's essentially very educational because it's people that think they know hip hop and come in there and be like, yo, I had no idea that exists. But we'll talk about that off the air because they had approached me about something because they're doing something with black music where they wanted that to be in the mix. But yeah, that's interesting. I'm just super happy that we have gotten to the point in our country where these things can exist and people are supporting it.
Yeah.
And it's not just some rinky-dink thing. Like, this is going to be an amazing situation. So when you guys launch and people come for that first go-round, what can they expect to see? Paint a picture.
Oh my gosh, man! So I think you're onto something, right? First class, first of all, it will be well done. It'll be something everybody who walks in can be proud of, and that's certainly what we're striving for. I think even before you hit the door, I'm envisioning a big party outside. In fact, my marketing team thinks we should do a parade before we open the museum.
That would be nice.
But we'll do some parties. I'm sort of envisioning almost a year of programming leading up to the opening of the museum itself. We'll do, I'm hoping we'll do concert at Bridgestone Arena, a few concerts at Ryman Auditorium, do a big version of our Celebration of Legends Gala right on the edge, on the verge of Black Music Month, so that we can really let the world know in some big public ways that this museum is opening. But then, sort of as you walk in the museum, the lobby will be of such, I don't know all the square footage by heart, but that you can seat 400 or 500 people for dinner. There is a theater as you go directly ahead that'll seat about 200. We're having a 15-minute film produced that will take you from the roots of African and American music all the way up through the current day. As you exit that theater, you'll exit into our River of Rhythm, which is the central spine of the museum. And in that River of Rhythm, there are touch tables and things of that nature that you can play with to go deep into the music where you want to have your own experience. But then every 45 minutes to an hour or so, that River of Rhythm gallery will convert into something we call transporting moments. And so the lights will go down, the tables will go dark, and instead in their place on the walls all around you will immerse you in a particular event in black music history that's iconic. And it might be Prince playing Purple Rain at the Super Bowl, or Jimi Hendrix playing at the Monterey Pop Festival.
Right.
And so you'll be in that environment for 3 minutes. And just imagine, the three of us are together and it feels like we're there. And so then as those things end, you'll walk into the Wade and the Water Gallery, which will deal with religious forms of music from about mid-1800s to early 1900s. And then go into the Crossroads Gallery, which will deal with the early 1900s to the mid 1900s, the early parts of the Great Migration. We start to have the introduction of blues. And then you'll move further into the Love Supreme Gallery, which starts to deal with kind of the 1930s or so to about the 1970s in principally American jazz music. Think the Harlem Renaissance and kind of all that's going on there, the culture, the fashion, as well as the music. And then from there you go into One Nation Under a Groove. So you start to deal with kind of the 1960s all the way up through, the 90s, the 2000s a little bit. Everything from Motown to Stax to P-Funk to all of that is going on. Prince and Michael Jackson, all that's happening in One Nation Under a Groove. And then you move finally into the Message, where you start to kind of deal with the era I call kind of the Bronx is burning. So the birth of hip hop, kind of maybe the 1970s all the way up through about 2012, 2015, where you really see hip hop emerge and draw from the blues and jazz and R&B and even gospel and soul, and kind of pull all that together into hip hop. And then it all kind of wraps around and dumps you back into the River of Rhythm again. So you kind of see, once again, it's all together. And that's the idea, is that the music all really flows in and out of one another. It's all very connected. And so hopefully we'll give everyone a connected experience as they go through the museum.
That sounds absolutely awesome, bro. Well, thank you. So I noticed, in explaining that, you said, I don't know if this was like by design or you just said it, like you said, all the way up until 2015. So do you see the museum being, caught up to present time, like to the day, to the minute as well? Because one experience I had, I had the opportunity to contribute to the VH1 documentary on Atlanta hip hop.
Sure.
And for as many people that loved it, a lot of people, I'll name them, folks like Future, Migos, folks that were just coming out when the documentary was being made were like, why ain't there more of us in there? It's like, bro, you got like one mixtape out, right? Like, we talking about folks that's been doing this for a while. Like, we get you, but no, I don't think you're supposed to have your own whole segment when you just dropped your first mixtape last year. You know what I'm saying? So, like, do you see the museum, also including things that were like, hey, man, y'all ain't got that little baby in here? I ain't little baby in the story of black music, you know?
So we struggle a little bit with that, and one of the things that so there will be a cutoff date for the initial permanent exhibition. Gotcha. In terms of what you see, in terms of artifacts and images. What we will be able to do in terms of bring more contemporary, kind of this last 5 to 10 years or so, is use the technology to do that. So again, the technology can stay very current. We're going to try, and it has to do with history. Mm-hmm. And so, one of the things that we don't know is how significant Little Baby will be in American history 5 years from now, 50 years from now, 20 years from now. And it may be that he is a force You know, at which point in time, you know, we'll have to revise the story to include, you know, Little Baby. But what we also will be able to do is there's a changing exhibition gallery that we'll have where we can do more contemporary stories. And that was by design, so that we can take a subject matter, an artist, kind of an area of interest, develop something specifically around it, have it focus on that in the museum for 3 to 6 months, and then once it's done, have it tour, go someplace else, or take it down, that kind of thing. So
definitely. What is the one fact or story that you had no idea about Black music that you found out during this process?
Well, wow. I mean, I think there have been a bunch, but one that comes to mind is that there was a, gosh, I'm going to get the year wrong, maybe 1763 or something like that. There was an event in American history called the Stono River Rebellion. And the Stono River Rebellion occurred in the South, I believe it was in South Carolina, and there was a group of enslaved people that began to communicate from plantation to plantation with their drums. And what they were communicating with those drums was, on this day, at this time, we're gonna rise up, we're gonna rebel. And so when that day came, there was a Stono River Rebellion. And as a result of that rebellion, a lot of the municipalities, the commonwealths, said, we're taking away the drums. And so 5 or 6 southern states passed laws that said, no more drums. And so that was something that was new to me, something I was not aware of. But it also has been really impactful for me to learn, because in my mind, my contention is that's when American music was born. The Native Americans were here, they had their thing. The European Americans came over, they brought their stuff with them. Ours was taken away. And so that's when the innovation was required. That's when the creativity was required. That's when the first mixtape came out. And so, you know, that's when American music was born. And so that's been one of the most powerful facts that I've learned since working on this project.
That's dope. That's very dope, man. Please tell people where they can follow the museum again, where they can donate and everything.
Please, please. So our website is nmaam.org, nmaam.org. And then on social media, all handles, we are at the NAMAM, the NMAAM. Please follow us and check us out. Keep up with us. Tell the world about what we're doing.
No doubt. Appreciate y'all listening. Appreciate y'all watching. We are off next week for the holidays. Hopefully y'all enjoy your time with your family or whoever you're going to be with on that day. Don't eat too much. Don't spend too much money on Black Friday. We will see you the following week with another dope episode. Peace.